Not every woman who smiles at you plans to stay. How many times have you thought you found her, the one you'd go all in for, only to end up wondering what the hell just happened? You gave time, energy, affection. You put her first. You told yourself she just needed time, but deep down, something always felt off. And eventually she pulled away, or worse, betrayed you when you least expected it. Most men don't want to see it coming. We ignore the subtle red flags because we're driven by attraction, hope, and the belief that love alone will keep her loyal. But some women aren't built for loyalty, not because they're evil, but because they never had the internal compass for it in the first place. If you don't learn the signs, you'll keep losing time, energy, and dignity to women who were never emotionally available to begin with. In this video, I'll show you the 10 hidden signs that reveal when a woman will never be loyal no matter what you do, say, or give. These signs are subtle, sometimes even seductive, but if you can spot them early, you take back control. Save your energy for the right one and avoid the trap most men fall into. Let's get into it. Sign 1. She dresses to impress, but not you. You ever notice how she used to put on that red dress when you had a date night? The way her eyes lit up when you complimented her earrings? Yeah, those moments used to be for you. But now, that same woman spends an hour getting ready when she's going out with her friends. And when it's just you two, she throws on some old hoodie and says, "You know I don't need to impress you." Let's pause right there. That's not comfort, that's a shift. And most men miss it until it's too late. Let's take Paul, 46, from Colorado. He's been with his girlfriend Megan for 3 years. In the beginning, she'd try on outfits just to ask what he thought. Now she heads to work in heels, tight skirts, and perfume you've never smelled before. But when they have dinner at home, she's in mismatched socks and doesn't even brush her hair. He told himself it's because she's comfortable. That is, until she stopped texting him during the day, then started hanging out later than usual. That's when he realized she wasn't dressing for comfort. She was dressing for attention, just not his. Here's the brutal truth, brother. When a woman starts dressing up more for the world than she does for you, it's not random, it's instinctual. Women seek attention from the source that gives them the most validation, and when that source isn't you, your role begins to shift. From being the man she wants to be seen with, to the man she forgets to see. That's why this sign is deadly quiet but deeply revealing. And I get it, you don't want to be that guy who overthinks her outfit. But this isn't about paranoia, it's about patterns. When her appearance consistently levels up around everyone but you, her emotional investment is drifting. Not always because she's cheating. Sometimes it's worse, she just doesn't care anymore. And that's where the Stoic mindset saves you. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, don't be afraid to question what's hard to face. Don't blind yourself to a truth just because it's uncomfortable. A man who wants respect must first confront reality, even if that reality is wearing lipstick for someone else. So what do? You don't accuse, you don't beg, you don't chase, you observe. You reclaim your presence. You raise your standard not by yelling but by simply showing that your time, your energy, your attention must be earned. And if she doesn't see that, you let her dress up for everyone else. You move on with dignity. Because the man who notices when he's no longer the focus, that man has already taken the first step toward not being taken for granted again. Now, I want to hear from you. Ever spotted this quiet shift in someone you were with? Comment, "I've felt that," and don't go anywhere. Because the next sign reveals a habit that looks innocent, but could mean her loyalty is already gone. Let's keep going. Sign 2. Social media is her real relationship. Let's get something straight. When a woman is more emotionally invested in the validation she receives from strangers online than in the connection she shares with you, you're not in a relationship. You're just a placeholder. It may sound harsh, but if her true emotional highs come from likes, comments, and DMs, she's not building with you, she's performing for them. A Stoic man pays attention not to the noise, but to the signals behind the noise. Social media has become a stage, and many women today are addicted to the spotlight. If her Instagram is filled with attention-baiting photos, filtered perfection, vague captions designed to attract curiosity and constant engagement with thirsty followers, yet she rarely posts about the man she claims to love, that's not by accident, that's strategic. Seneca once said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." She desires constant validation as if it will last forever, and fears missing out on attention, even if it costs her loyalty. Think about that. When someone values digital admiration over intimate connection, it reveals their emotional compass. Now, this isn't about policing what a woman wears or who she talks to. It's about noticing where her emotional energy flows. If she's obsessively curating a version of herself for public consumption, she's investing more in perception than presence. And that's dangerous ground for trust. You'll notice subtle signs. She brings her phone to bed. She answers DMs at dinner. She flirts in comment sections but swears it's just online. And if you ever question it, she flips it on you. You're just being insecure. That gaslighting is her defense mechanism, because deep down she knows where her loyalty really lies, and it's not with the man sitting next to her. A Stoic man does not chase or control. He observes, and when something violates his values, he walks. He doesn't try to win attention from someone who is already addicted to strangers. He doesn't beg for commitment from someone who's emotionally cheating with every post. Instead, he reclaims his power by staying grounded in self-respect. Because here's the truth, a woman who's loyal doesn't need attention from everywhere. She finds enough in the eyes of the man she loves. And when that isn't enough for her anymore, you owe it to yourself to let go. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Too many men stay stuck in relationships with women who live double lives, one with them, one online. And they think if they just love harder, tolerate more, or become more fun, she'll change. She won't. Not until she decides to face her own emptiness. And that's not your responsibility. Here's a reality you must face as a man if her digital life holds more weight than your real connection she's already chosen. You're just waiting for her to make it official. So don't waste energy begging to be noticed in a world she's already too distracted to see you in. Instead, build a world where you don't need to compete with illusions. If this hits home, leave a comment and let me know. With this simple truth, I deserve presence. And stay with me, because in the next part we'll touch on a behavior so subtle and common, yet it silently poisons trust without you even realizing it. Don't miss it. Sign 3. Her wild past is only a sleep. Let's be honest. Every man has heard this line, that was just a phase. And while yes, people grow and evolve, a wild past isn't always a closed chapter, it's often just a paused one. Here's what most men miss: a woman who had a reckless past filled with casual flings, drama, or chaos doesn't magically transform because she's now with someone stable. That version of her may not be active right now, but it's not gone. It's simply sleeping. Take Ethan, 42, a small business owner in Dallas. He met Brooke, 37, at a charity event. She was charming, poised, and carried herself like she'd outgrown the party scene. But over time, cracks showed. Late nights with the girls turned into unexplained weekends away. Old habits once carefully tucked away resurfaced when things got boring or too routine. See, the truth is this: when someone has built part of their identity around chaos, they often crave the dopamine hit of unpredictability. And when the stability you offer feels too calm, too grounded, they begin to seek that high again. Not out of hate, but out of conditioning. This isn't about judging her past. It's about whether she's resolved it or simply escaped it for a while. A wild past only becomes dangerous when it's unprocessed. When a woman hasn't confronted why she sought attention, risk, or recklessness in the first place, Those desires linger beneath the surface. And here's the real test. Does she get defensive when you bring it up? Does she shut you down with, "Why are you being insecure?" That's not closure, that's avoidance. And avoidance isn't healing. A woman with a wild past who has done the inner work will speak about it with clarity and accountability. She'll own it. But one who brushes it off, romanticizes it, or hides it from you, she's still emotionally tied to that version of herself. She might be faithful in behavior today, but her mind might drift the second she feels unappreciated or bored. Men like Ethan learned this the hard way. By the time Brooke's patterns reappeared, he was already deep in. Mortgage, shared accounts, family vacations. She didn't cheat, not physically, but emotionally she was already somewhere else. The thrill-seeking, the impulsivity, the flirty texts with old friends, it all came flooding back. What many men forget is this: you're not just dating who she is now. You're also inheriting every version she's been. And if those versions haven't been fully reconciled, they will resurface. Now, this doesn't mean you dismiss every woman with a colorful past, but it does mean you observe. Watch how she handles boredom. Watch what lights her up. If she's still secretly drawn to chaos, still gets giddy around risky attention, or still seeks validation from the same sources that fed her wild days, that's not history. That's a warning. As a man, you must be grounded enough to see through the performance. Don't let beauty blind you to behavior. Don't let chemistry distract you from consistency. Because a Stoic man doesn't get attached to potential. He responds to patterns. So if you find yourself with someone who swears she's changed but her actions echo her old life, believe the echo. Don't wait for the wildness to wake up again and burn everything down. Let me ask you this: I see the signs. Drop that in the comments if you've ever ignored red flags and paid the price. And stay close, because next we're diving into a sign that most men overlook until it's too late. You won't want to miss what's coming. Sign 4. Too many male friends, too little loyalty. Let's get real for a second. If a woman constantly surrounds herself with male friends and you're told not to worry because they're just like brothers, you better start paying attention, not nodding in agreement. Now, we're not saying women shouldn't have male acquaintances, but when the majority of her emotional energy, time and attention is being poured into men other than you, that's not friendship. That's a subtle form of emotional outsourcing, and where loyalty is concerned, that's dangerous ground. Here's the truth: most men ignore attention is a form of currency. And a woman who keeps a rotation of male friends who compliment her message her late or show up the second she's feeling down isn't poor in options. She's rich in backup plans. And when things get shaky between you two, she won't sit in the discomfort. She'll bounce emotionally first, then maybe physically into the arms of one of those just friends who've been orbiting the whole time. A Stoic once said, "You become what you give your attention to." That applies to her too. If her attention is always drifting outward to other men, other voices, other sources of validation, then she's not building intimacy with you. She's spreading her loyalty thin. And someone who spreads it thin can't give it fully. What's more subtle and more dangerous is how this is often disguised as empowerment. You'll hear, "I don't believe in controlling relationships," or "I've always had more guy friends." But that's not empowerment. That's avoidance. Avoidance of emotional vulnerability, avoidance of healthy boundaries, avoidance of accountability. Because deep down, a woman who builds her world around male attention isn't looking for depth, she's looking for supply. She's addicted to being wanted. And no matter how much you give her, it'll never be enough to silence that craving for external approval. This doesn't mean you act out of jealousy or control. Quite the opposite. A man who lives with stoic clarity observes without overreacting. You don't chase. You don't beg. You watch. And if you see her prioritizing these connections over your bond, you speak your truth once clearly, calmly, directly. If she dismisses it, downplays it, or flips it back on you, then you already have your answer. A loyal woman knows the difference between healthy social connections and emotional intimacy reserved for her partner. She won't make you compete with men who secretly want her. She won't invite you into a dynamic where you're constantly on edge. You deserve someone who protects the emotional container of your relationship, not someone who casually leaves the door open for anyone to peek in. Now, if you've been nodding through this and realizing you've ignored these signs before, don't beat yourself up, but do learn. Because here's the harsh reality: she won't tell you when her loyalty starts to fade. She'll just quietly shift her energy elsewhere while keeping you around until she's sure of her next move. Don't let that be your story. Now here's where things get even more eye-opening. In the next section, we're unpacking a behavior that most men write off as fun or carefree, but it's actually one of the clearest signs she'll never be yours alone. But before we go there, if you've been getting value from this kind of truth and you want deeper, raw insights that we don't share publicly, consider joining the member community. You'll get exclusive episodes, behind-the-scenes breakdowns, and a direct line to the mindset that keeps you one step ahead. This isn't about judgment, it's about clarity. And clarity, brother, is freedom. Drop this in the comments if it hit home. I want clarity. Ready to dive deeper. Let's move forward. Sign 5. Every ex is her enemy. There's something quietly unsettling about a woman who has nothing good to say about anyone she once claimed to love. You know the type. Every ex-boyfriend, every past relationship, every man she used to be close to is now described with contempt, narcissist, toxic, manipulative. It's as if her entire romantic past is made up of villains and she the misunderstood heroine. Now let's make something clear. Yes, some women have endured real trauma. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a pattern where no man seems to have left her life without becoming a monster in her story. That's not coincidence. That's a signal. A woman who talks about her exes with constant bitterness, especially unprovoked, is telling you something not just about them, but about herself. She's showing you how she handles disappointment, how she rewrites history to suit her current emotions, and how she will likely speak about you one day. Let me give you a real-world example. Michael, 43, divorced, started dating Vanessa, 39, a high-energy woman with charm to spare. But early on, she kept slipping into stories about her past relationships. One guy was too controlling, another was emotionally unavailable, a third ghosted her. Michael listened patiently at first, thinking maybe she just needed to vent. But over time, he realized something: she never once mentioned anything she did wrong, not even a hint of self-reflection. It started to wear on him. If every man was the villain, what were the odds? She was always the victim. See, mature people own their past. They don't sugarcoat it, but they don't use it as a weapon either. A woman who is emotionally stable and ready for something real will be able to say, "It didn't work out, but we both had our part in it." That's an adult response. That's someone capable of love, not just someone craving validation or revenge. Now, from a Stoic perspective, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest." He wasn't being cynical. He was preparing himself to deal with people as they are, not as he wished them to be. Apply that here. If a woman constantly blames others, never herself, you're seeing someone who hasn't learned to face their role in failure. You're seeing someone who expects you to be perfect because they never admit they were wrong. And here's the dangerous part. When the relationship gets rocky, she'll need someone to blame again. You. If she's vilified every man before you, don't fool yourself into thinking you'll be the exception. You'll just be the next chapter in her victimhood saga. The way a woman speaks about her past reveals how she processes pain, accountability, and growth. If all her past lovers are crazy, then she's not healed, she's rehearsing. Now here's where it gets subtle. Some men think this behavior shows passion. She's fiery, she's emotional, She cares deeply. But don't confuse intensity for depth. True depth comes with humility, with grace, with the ability to say, "I've made mistakes too." So if you're talking to a woman who never takes ownership of her past, take a step back. It's not about judging her, it's about protecting yourself. You deserve someone who's not just looking for a hero to save her from her exes, but someone who's become the hero of her own story. Let her resentment be a red flag, not a challenge you think you can fix. If this is making something click in your mind, good. That means you're paying attention. That means you're ready to stop ignoring what you've sensed all along. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment with this simple phrase, "I trust myself." Because at the end of the day, that's what you need most, your own clarity. And don't go anywhere, the next sign will hit harder than all the others so far. Let's keep going. Sign 6. She craves chaos, not commitment. There's a kind of woman who will pull you in like a magnet, but not because she wants to build something real. She wants the fire, not the foundation, the thrill, not the stability. She says she wants love, but her actions scream something else entirely. She craves chaos. Not the kind of chaos that's obvious, like shouting matches or throwing dishes. No, it's subtler than that. It's the emotional roller coasters, the hot and cold, the random silent treatments, the sudden accusations, the nights filled with passion followed by days of distance. It's the endless drama that keeps your nervous system firing like you're always in survival mode. At first, it's intoxicating. You think you've just met someone intense, passionate, maybe even misunderstood. But what you're really experiencing is a pattern, a craving for emotional volatility instead of emotional maturity. And that's the problem. She doesn't want peace. Peace feels boring. Stability feels like suffocation. If nothing's burning, she'll light the match herself. Now let's connect this to Stoic wisdom. Epictetus said, "When someone is properly grounded in life, they shouldn't have to look outside themselves for approval. But a woman who craves chaos is never grounded. Her self-worth relies on how much attention, reaction, and emotional validation she can extract from others. She doesn't seek approval to grow, she seeks it to survive. And that means she needs instability. Without it, she feels empty. With it, she feels alive." So how do you spot this? She might always be in conflict with her family, her friends, her exes. She'll speak about how no one ever gets her, how people always turn on her, how she just has bad luck. These aren't isolated incidents, they're a pattern of instability that follows her everywhere she goes. She's also unpredictable. One day, you're her hero. The next, you're the enemy. Not because you've changed, but because stability makes her nervous. It forces her to confront herself. And that's something she's been avoiding her whole life. You see, chaos gives her control. Think about it. If she can stir your emotions, if she can make you chase, apologize, defend, explain, she doesn't have to be vulnerable. She doesn't have to open up. She just has to keep you dancing to her rhythm. That's not love. That's manipulation rooted in fear. A woman who wants commitment doesn't need chaos. She doesn't need to test your loyalty every week. She doesn't need you to prove yourself over and over again. She brings calm, not confusion, presence, not pressure. Now here's the trap for most men. Chaotic women are rarely unattractive. In fact, they often have magnetic energy. They know how to seduce, how to keep you hooked, how to make you feel like you're the only thing that can save them. But you're not her savior. You're just the next temporary distraction from herself. A Stoic man sees through this. He doesn't react to the fire, he observes it. He doesn't confuse chaos for connection. He doesn't give in to emotional highs just because they feel good. Because he knows what begins in chaos usually ends in ruin. So if you're dealing with someone who thrives on emotional drama, who can't go a week without some kind of turmoil, you already know what's coming. The only question is, do you value your peace enough to walk away? Let her chase chaos. You chase clarity. And if this spoke to something deep inside you, then don't just sit there, own it. Drop this in the comments. I choose peace. That one choice, it might save you years of pain. We're not done yet. The next sign is one most men overlook, and it's the one that hits the hardest. Let's keep going. Sign 7. Boundaries mean nothing to her. Let's talk about something subtle but deeply telling boundaries. Not the loud, obvious kind, but the quiet ones. The I need space kind. The please don't touch that part of my life kind. The kind that healthy people recognize and respect. When a woman repeatedly ignores challenges or mocks your boundaries, she's not testing your love, she's revealing her lack of respect. Take this story. Brian, 34, lives in Austin, Texas. He met Madison, 29, through mutual friends. She was smart, attractive, and had this wild energy that pulled him in. But soon she began doing small things that felt off. He told her he preferred not to be called at work unless it was urgent, but she'd still FaceTime him during meetings just to see his face. He said he needed Sundays to recharge alone. She'd drop by with coffee and plans anyway. She'd scroll through his phone as a joke, then get angry when he asked her to stop. It didn't take long before Brian stopped reinforcing his boundaries, because every time he did, Madison would twist it. She'd cry, get cold, guilt trip him, or flip it around, why are you shutting me out? Now here's the key, the problem wasn't the boundaries, it was her need to violate them just to see if she could. And that's the sign. A disloyal woman doesn't just cross lines by accident, she erases them with intention. She tests you to see if your word means anything, and when it doesn't, she knows she has full control. You might think, but I love her, I'll be patient, or she's just been hurt before, she doesn't trust easily. But here's what you're really doing, you're justifying your own erosion. Let me say that again, every time you let someone cross your boundaries, you teach them how to treat you. Now let's bring in some Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth which never harmed anyone. A woman who truly values you will respond to a boundary with curiosity, not conflict. She'll ask questions, she'll adjust, she'll reflect. But when someone instantly gets defensive, dismissive, or offended by your limits, it's not because they don't understand, it's because they don't care. And here's where most men fall into a trap. They think setting boundaries will scare her away. But here's the reality, the wrong woman will leave when you have strong boundaries. The right woman won't stay unless you do. So how do you spot it early? She constantly tests rules and reacts badly when you say no. She treats your privacy as optional. She forces access into your phone, your finances, even your emotional states. She laughs off serious discussions by calling them too intense or not a big deal. She plays victim when confronted, flipping the script to make you feel guilty for wanting basic respect. This isn't about being controlling, it's about self-respect. A woman who won't honor your boundaries today will not stand by you when life actually gets hard. So ask yourself, are you with someone who strengthens your clarity or someone who drains your sense of self? And if you're seeing these signs, don't ignore them just because she's beautiful, exciting, or emotionally intense. That's how chaos gets in the door, dressed like passion. If this hits home for you, drop this in the comments. I protect my peace. And remember, the next sign is something most men are too afraid to admit, but it might be the one that saves you. Let's keep going. Sign 8. She falls fast, leaves faster. Let's talk about the kind of woman who moves at lightning speed, the one who makes you feel like you're in a love story on day 2 and a ghost story by week 3. She tells you she's never felt this way before, that there's something different about you. She's intense, passionate, almost too good to be true. And that's exactly the problem, because here's the sign. She falls fast, but leaves even faster. This woman isn't looking for love. She's chasing a feeling, the rush, the high, the escape. And once that emotional hit fades, once things become stable, real, maybe even boring, she's gone. On to the next different guy who gives her that same dopamine surge. At first it flatters you. She's all in, obsessed, responds instantly, wants to be with you every moment. It feels like the kind of connection people write songs about. But take a step back. Ask yourself, why is someone falling this hard, this fast, without even knowing me yet? The answer, it's not about you. It's about her own emotional roller coaster. This kind of intensity is often a red flag disguised as chemistry. It's not built on values, compatibility, or shared direction. It's built on the rush of novelty. And here's where the pain comes in. When she pulls away because she will, it hits like a truck. You're left confused, wondering what went wrong, trying to retrace your steps. But the truth is, nothing went wrong. The fire just burned itself out. It always does when it's made of gasoline. Now let's turn to some Stoic wisdom. Epictetus once said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." You see, when a woman like this exits your life, it's not the loss that hurts most. It's the story you told yourself about what it meant. You believed her intensity equaled depth. You assumed her passion meant permanence. You mistook emotional speed for emotional maturity. But in Stoicism, we're taught not to be swayed by emotional extremes, especially when they aren't grounded in reason. A woman who moves that quickly isn't creating a bond. She's playing a part. And as soon as the script no longer excites her, she exits stage left, often without warning, explanation, or closure. So how do you protect yourself? Slow things down. Let her reveal her consistency, not just her compliments. Watch how she behaves when you say no, when you create space, or when things get quiet. A truly loyal woman doesn't rush the process, she respects it. Remember, lust accelerates, loyalty matures. And you don't want the kind of woman who's in love with falling in love. You want the one who stays when the adrenaline wears off. So, if you've ever been blindsided by someone who swore she was all in, only to vanish without a trace, you're not alone. And more importantly, it wasn't about your worth. It was about her instability. If this hits home, I want you to drop this in the comments right now. I choose steady love. Because the next sign, it reveals something most men miss until it's already too late. Let's move forward. Sign 9. You're always being compared. Let's get real. There's nothing more frustrating, more subtly damaging, than constantly feeling like you're in competition, and you don't even know who with. You show up, you put in effort, you care. But no matter what you do, it feels like you're always being measured against something or someone else. That's the 9th sign. You're always being compared. Maybe it's her ex. Maybe it's her co-worker she swears is just a friend. Maybe it's the idea of the guy she sees on social media, the one with the abs, the money, the lifestyle. Whatever the case, you don't feel seen. You feel like you're part of a scoreboard she's keeping in her head. Let me give you a real-world example. Meet David, 32, from Austin, Texas. Smart guy, owns his own business. Not flashy, but dependable, emotionally grounded and loyal. He starts dating Rachel, 29, a beautiful, outgoing marketing exec who's constantly scrolling, posting, sharing. At first, everything's great, but little comments start creeping in. "My ex used to surprise me more. Mark at work is so funny, you'd love him. Did you see what that couple did for their anniversary on Instagram?" At first, David laughs it off, but inside something shifts. He starts to question himself. Is he not enough? Should he be more spontaneous, more charming, more like that polished fantasy she keeps referencing? That right there is the damage comparison does. It erodes authenticity. It pushes you to perform, not connect. And it plants the poisonous idea that you're not the choice, you're just the placeholder. Let's be clear, a loyal woman doesn't put you in competition. She doesn't make you feel like you're in a race. She makes you feel like you're already home. Now, what does Stoicism teach us in a situation like this? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, you don't control whether she compares. You do control whether you accept the comparison as valid. Because here's the brutal truth. A woman who constantly compares is not emotionally present. She's not building something with you. She's chasing a fantasy version of what she thinks she deserves without doing the inner work to deserve it. And when a woman's mind is always elsewhere, her loyalty is too. So what do? You stop performing. You stop chasing. You start observing. How does she speak about the people from her past? How does she react when you don't meet one of her unspoken expectations? Does she uplift you or subtly diminish you to motivate you into being someone else? If the answer feels like pressure instead of partnership, you already know. You are not here to be a remix of some other man. You're not here to live up to some invisible standard that keeps moving. You are here to lead, not be led around by insecurity. So if you're watching this and you've felt that sting of comparison, if you've been David questioning your value because of some passive-aggressive remark, I want you to comment this right now. I will not compete. Say it. Mean it. Live it. Because in the next and final sign, we're going to expose the most dangerous trait of all, one that even the smartest men ignore until it's too late. Ready? Let's move on. Sign 10. Secrets are her default setting. Let's end this with a truth most men don't want to admit, but absolutely must. Some women live behind walls, not because they're shy, not because they're private, but because secrecy is how they stay in control. And that, brother, is your final red flag when secrets are her default setting. At first it may seem subtle. She dodges certain questions. She says, "You're overthinking." She keeps her phone face down. She gives you just enough to keep you close, but never enough to feel safe. It feels like a puzzle you're always one piece away from solving. Let me ask you this. Why is it so hard for some men to walk away from women who confuse them? Because mystery, when paired with attraction, becomes intoxicating. But here's the thing, there's a difference between mystery and manipulation. Mystery is who she is. Manipulation is what she does. And when secrets start stacking up, unexplained late nights, a past you're not allowed to ask about, conversations she shuts down before they begin, that's not charm, that's a pattern. One of the most overlooked psychological truths in relationships is this: trust isn't built on what you know about someone. It's built on what they willingly share. Now let's tie this to Stoicism, because Marcus Aurelius reminds us, never value the gift more than the giver. If a woman gives you attention, intimacy, affection, but guards the truth of who she is, what she's doing, and who she talks to, you're not in a relationship, you're in a transaction. You're being given access in exchange for your energy while she gives you nothing of her reality. Think about that. And I know some men will say, "But I don't want to come off controlling. She has a right to her privacy." Sure, of course she does. But privacy isn't secrecy. Privacy is choosing not to post your business online. Secrecy is hiding things from the person you're building a future with. Big difference.